Good afternoon. Welcome. How are you doing?
Good morning, sir. I'm fine, and you?
I'm hanging in there. So I want to give you a heads up that there's only 6 students enrolled in this tutorial. So it may be that, um, there's going to be uh, weeks when attendance is pretty low. If that happens, with you guys and with the Monday 8 a.m. that also has very low enrollment. When that happens, I'm going to give you guys permission to attend another tutorial, um, so that you can sort of get the benefit of interacting with your classmates. Um, so today we're not going to be doing anything super substantive. We're not going to be doing any course material. This is just a chance for you to get to know me a little and for me to get to know you a little. So there's a survey on e-learning called the Icebreaker. If you haven't filled it out, please go ahead and do so, sort of while I'm sort of talking about myself, for whatever good that does. But so the 3 things that I'm going to tell you about are sort of me as a researcher, me as a teacher, and me as an examiner, right? So as a researcher, like I said in class on Monday, I'm a political scientist. And so what that means is that I don't do the kind of research that law professors normally do. So normally what law professors do when they do research is they sit down and they read a lot of cases and statutes and sort of the materials of law, the documents that make up law. And from that, they discern some sort of analysis that they can make about how the law is and how it ought to be. What I do as a political scientist is I study courts as political institutions. So I am interested in the why decisions get made, right? So why do judges decide cases the way that they do? Why do litigants frame their arguments the way that they do? Right? These are the kinds of questions that I ask in my research. And social scientists have demonstrated some that there are some factors in judicial decision making that aren't just the law and the facts, right? Which is the story that we tell ourselves as lawyers, that cases get decided on the law and the facts. Well, that's not necessarily the case. So that's me as a researcher. As a teacher, the most important thing for me is that you guys come out of this class with tools that will help you build a better world. Okay, so what do I mean by that, right? I mean that you got to understand the way that the world is. So we're going to spend most of our time this semester like talking about the state of torts doctrine and sort of how you prove a torts case under existing doctrine. But we're also going to ask questions about alternative ways to structure the world, alternative ways to determine torts liability. And we're going to ask questions that are about, what are, which of these alternatives is better, right? Is the status quo really the best possible way to do things? And yes is a legitimate answer to that question, right? You can decide that the best possible system is the one that we have. Okay. But if you don't have the tools to ask the question, the answer doesn't mean anything. And so that's how I am as a teacher. As an examiner, one of the most important things for me is for you guys to understand that I'm not here to fail you guys. I'm not here to, sort of throw you to the wolves, right? We're here to learn this together. And that's what I want to accomplish for you, right? Is I want you to learn what you need to learn to be able to succeed. And that means that I want three things from you, right? That sort of cut across the types of assessment and just sort of go into all kinds of different situations. And those three things are: I want you to be kind to one another. It would be nice if you were also kind to me, but that may be too much to ask. Because the legal system, and I mean the world in general, is designed to grind you up, grind you up and consume you. And in a system like that, it seems to me that the most radical thing we can do for one another is to be kind. And so that's a commitment that I make to you, and it's something that I ask from you. The second thing that I ask from you is that you be prepared. Okay, so that means coming to class, having done the assigned readings, having reviewed the worksheets. If you need to read the cases that the worksheet points you to, making sure you've read the cases, made notes of your questions, right? These are the things that I ask of you, is that you take the time outside of class so that the time in class isn't a waste of your time. And the third thing that I ask of you is to be communicative. Because look, the world happens, okay? It happens so much all the time, okay? It's a thing, right? And it's okay if you're struggling, right? You should struggle. This is a learning process, and part of learning is failing, okay? Not failing the class, but like having to work at things. If you're not having to work, then are you really learning? And so when you're struggling with the course material, I want you to communicate that with me. I want you to come to me with your concerns. If you're struggling more broadly, right? So if you're struggling because you're working and you're having trouble keeping up in class, if you're struggling because you have caregiving responsibilities and you're struggling to keep up, if you're if what's hard for you is just sort of like Zoom law school, right? Because that's really hard. All of these are things that you can communicate with me about. And I don't necessarily always have solutions, but I'm always willing to try and willing to hear you out to try and help you. Okay. So what questions do you have about sort of this, sort of info dump on you? And you being the only one in the room sort of puts a burden on you. So it's okay if you don't have questions, but what questions do you have?
Sir, honestly, from what you have been telling us so far, it actually makes, I don't have any questions. It actually makes me feel comfortable, and I look forward to actually starting and getting into the subject.
Good, good. Well, we're continuing. We started on Monday, and we're going to continue that this afternoon. Okay, so with that in mind, right? The last thing that we're going to do, and then I'm going to let you go and sort of wrap things up early. The last thing that we're going to do is, this is your chance to ask me anything you want, right? The survey, the icebreaker survey, asks you to pose one question, on any topic, anything whatsoever, and I will answer. So what was your one question?
I was just filling out the survey, but I would just say, like, when it comes to answering questions, like if you give us a question and we're supposed to analyze it, how would you expect us to approach the question, basically?
Yeah. I mean, the answer is that I don't have a prescribed approach, right? I know that some of my colleagues have like very sort of strict expectations for, this is how you arrange your answer to a question. And they do that for a couple of reasons. One is that it makes grading easier, right? Because they sort of know what to expect and what to look for step by step through the answer, which is a perfectly valid reason to do that. The other thing is that it teaches you guys to structure your answers in a way that makes sense to your audience. Okay. My stance is that you should be learning lots of ways to structure your answers, because not all of your audiences are going to think the same way, right? So if you go into litigation practice, whatever type of litigation it is, judges are going to have one type of approach for sort of how they think they want your submissions, arranged. But if you go into a corporate environment, if you go into something in-house, or you go into a transactional environment, those are going to be very different sorts of environments that are going to expect you to structure your work product in a very different way. So I am not super concerned about how you arrange things. What I am looking for is evidence that you have engaged with the materials and understand the applicable concepts. Okay, so I'll give you an example, right? Citations to sources. This is something that students stress out a great deal over. Okay, and in this class, you are required to use OSCOLA citation for any sources that you cite in anything that you submit in this class. But I'm going to tell you, because I've told some of your classmates, and I will tell anyone that it comes up with, I don't know OSCOLA. American lawyers aren't trained using it. We have a different citation system. I do not know whether you've done your citations correctly at any point. And so I don't award marks for correct citations, but I also don't deduct them for incorrect ones, because my stance is, if I've got enough information in the citation that I can go and find what you're citing and fact check you, that's good enough. And I'm not going to get bogged down in the details of a citation system that I don't know and I don't use. So, so that's why that's sort of what I mean when I say you should structure your answers to questions in a way that makes sense, right? Where your answer flows. And the IRAC system, or the LIFA system, are both ways that you have been taught that can do that for you, but they are not the only ways. And if you choose not to use them, I will still be looking for ways to award appropriate marks based on the concepts that you've demonstrated. Okay.
Okay, understand. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Since you're the only one here, you can keep asking questions if you want, but if you can't think of any, then we can wrap it up. So that's we'll stay here as long as you've got questions or until 1 o'clock.
I don't really have any questions. The question that I just asked is because personally I believe that when it comes to me, I find that, like you said, everybody else is different on how they want their questions structured. But when it comes to me, I'm answering questions, I like to get to my point. So I don't have like a whole set of work there. I just have the information that is needed. I don't like to do the whole run around and stuff like that. So when I encounter tutors who wants like a whole long explanation stuff, it's kind of difficult for me because I then get lost in everything that I'm writing rather than getting to the point. So that was why I asked you like how you would.
Yeah. I my stance is that in legal writing in particular, brevity is a virtue that we should be encouraging, but I also recognize that it is really hard to write something short, and it's very easy to write something long. So I don't, while I always will prefer something that is complete but brief, I don't judge students more harshly if they take more time to get to the point. So you certainly are talking in a way that sounds like you've already internalized a lot of the things that I would want from sort of the best best practices in legal writing. But your classmates who don't write that way, or who have are worried that they're going to leave things out if they are not more verbose, they don't bother me. I'm more than happy. I read what needs to be read.
Okay, sir. Well, thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Sure, no problem. So
I
take
will
care.
see you next class, which is
in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So
Bye-bye, sir. Have a good day.
all right. You too. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.